Today we're going to take a bone stock 2007 5.9 Cummins diesel. We're going to do some cheap upgrades. What can you do to this guy without breaking the bank? We want to do some upgrades that are not crazy expensive. So what we're going to do is some simple EFI Life tuning, no injectors, nothing fancy, just a tune. The problem is it doesn't take much to smoke one of these transmissions stock. So we're going to do what's called our pan off upgrade, where we take the valve body out and just modify it. This is stuff you can do in your garage. You don't need a transmission shop. You don't need any fancy tools. This is stuff you can do at your house to make your truck hold some more power. We're going to take this valve body and show you guys what a stock valve body does and what the modified kit does, so you can see for yourselves what the kit will do for your transmission. Then we're going to do some dyno testing, and it's going to be great. Here we go.
Okay guys, so we got the valve body out of this 2007 that came in the shop, and we're going to put the stock valve body on our valve body test stand here and see what kind of pressure it makes. And then after we build the valve body, then we'll put it back on the test stand to show what kind of changes you get from a built valve body versus a stock valve body. Now, a 48RE like this customer, they're kind of the best case scenario for a good valve body stock. They make a little bit more pressure. They shift a little cleaner, some of that. Just a few little updates that Mopar, Dodge, Chrysler, whatever you want to call it, did in the valve body casting. Just a couple of fluid passages, check ball changes, some minor stuff. But still, there is going to be a noticeable difference here on the pressure and the lockup and some of that. So let's check out what the stock one does first. Okay, so let's put it at, 1,000 engine RPM. 1,500. Okay, so see in manual first here, we're up there, 80 PSI in first gear. If we give it throttle, like when you throttle your cable, it throttles the valve body. So when you throttle your truck, the throttle goes up. Now this is a TTVA motor, meaning it doesn't have a cable, it has an electric motor that throttles the tranny. So an EFI Life tuner, when they get in there, if they mess with that, they can give you more line pressure on a factory valve body just by throttling it. However, it'll downshift if you throttle it too much. So there's a fine line on what you can do with tuning and what you actually have to do with hard mechanical parts in the valve body. Let's go to second gear now. And you can see right here. So second gear came up fine. Let's try locking the converter. See, the converter was locked. We can lock up in second gear, we get more pressure. You can see how fast the converter dumps here. See how slow this is? When we get our built valve body, we'll have to watch the release because it should release a little faster. Now we're going to go into third gear. You can see third gear here. We're making a pathetic 50 PSI. Let's throttle the tranny up. We can get, about 90. But look, see, if you're down at idle, you can't get full line pressure. You don't have enough flow. As you get up higher, see how it comes up a little bit? Then when you go into overdrive, you watch all the line pressure boost in overdrive. But still, we're at, 75 or so with no throttle. If we throttle it up, it's like about 135, almost 140, depends on the temperature of the fluid, obviously. Torque converter on and off. Pretty simple. Valve body works great. So now we're going to get this on the test stand or on the bench. We're going to build this valve body to make more line pressure. We're going to make the torque converter apply and release a little bit more aggressively to help that stock converter live under the torque. And we're going to clean up these shifts a little bit. Okay guys, Connor just finished up with this valve body on the build bench. Now we got it back on the test stand. So now we're gonna turn it on and see what happened with our modifications. We're gonna crank this up to 1500 RPM like last time. And you'll see we are at a little over 80 pounds of pressure in first gear. Second gear, see we're right there about 80. If we throttle it up, getting up there right about 140 pounds of pressure. Remember, 135 was the most we got before in overdrive or lockup, which engages a boost circuit, which gives you your maximum line pressure. So with the tuning, we can throttle the tranny a little bit extra. And with the valve body mods, we can basically get the same line pressure in the lower gears as we had in the higher gears and still be safe and not overrun where the converter has issues. Let's try third gear. There's third gear, throttle it up. We're making sure it doesn't kick down. If this kicks down, then we know it's going to second gear. It stayed in third, so right there about 130. There's more stuff engaged on the valve body, so it makes a little bit less. Let's try torque converter lockup. Watch the line pressure. Goes up in lockup when we throttle it. Right at 175. And then let's see, lockup is applied. There's 0 on the release side. Let's go ahead and command overdrive. And let's throttle that up. We're right there dang near 180 PSI. So we went from 135 PSI to 180 PSI. And with a little bit of throttle, this thing is just snappy. And torque converter off, overdrive off. Bleeds down much faster because we've got a little more vent, both in overdrive and in the torque converter release and apply. That's why that's a little more snappy. You can see how much faster this release is coming down. Yeah, this thing tests out. It's good. We're ready to go hold some power with this otherwise stock tranny with the rest of the pan-off upgrades. Okay, to finish off this pan-off upgrade to going with the valve body, the first and foremost thing we need is this second gear billet band strut. The factory strut is stamped steel and it'll bend with the high line pressure of the valve body. So this billet steel one is upgraded, and we run these even on the race truck. So this is good from the mildest truck all the way to a race truck. There's no adverse effects. You could add this to a stock tranny, but you absolutely need it when you put a built valve body in there that makes more line pressure. The second part of the equation is the second gear band anchor. The factory piece is cast, and they'll split under the high load with the increased pressure from the valve body. So we want this billet steel, this 4140 anchor in there, and we've never had one of these fail. Basically, you're addressing the 2 weak points on the second gear band. The third thing we want is this upgraded accumulator with the spring. This accumulator is used on the 1-2 upshift. This one has 4 seals rather than the factory one that has 2. Factory one's plastic, and this one is solid billet aluminum. It's nice anodized, pretty part. Kind of makes you feel good when you put it in the tranny, but really the purpose of it is to clean up that 1-2 shift a little bit. And then this heavier spring makes the accumulator a little bit slower acting, so it doesn't steal as much pressure from the shift, so you don't have quite as much pressure drop when the truck shifts into second gear. Third and last is this billet servo cover. The upgrade on this is it's basically a lot like a stock cover. The stock one's cast, and this one is made out of a solid piece of aluminum. And the advantage is this has a seal in the middle. This seal cleans up the release of the second gear servo. Essentially in second gear, a band is applied on a drum. In third gear, that drum has to start spinning. So you need to release the band immediately as the third gear starts going, or you get a bind up or a tie up. And oil that comes in to release this commonly leaks out around the pin. So there's an added seal here to clean up that shift. We also have this heavy duty spring that we're putting on here. This helps release the servo as well faster to clean up that 2-3 upshift. And with these parts, this is pretty much it for the pan-off upgrade. If the trans was out, you could also put a billet lever where we could change the ratio and do some more stuff there. But for this tranny, this is really all you can get to with just taking the pan off, is the valve body and these parts. But this will be pretty rock solid. You'd be surprised how much power this thing's going to hold on the dyno with these parts. And long term, it actually, 48RE is a pretty good tranny when you address these few points here and give it a little bit better valve body. So next we'll go follow Connor. He's going to install these in the tranny, and we'll get it on the dyno.
All right, so now our pan off modifications are done. You saw what it did on the test stand, and it's back in the truck. Now we're ready to do some testing. Right now we've done no tuning. We want to do a baseline run with just the stock tuning. I want to know what kind of EGT does Dodge think is okay? What kind of power does it make? And after that, we'll put in the tunes, and we'll go from there. We don't want to be much over about 400 horsepower with the modifications we've done. We've increased the power capacity a lot, but the reality is it still has a stock Dodge torque converter. And even with increased line pressure, it'll help, but you still don't want to go much over 400 horsepower if you want reliability. With your towing tunes, you want a little bit less. So let's get this thing on the dyno and see what it does in stock form. All right, so the pan off upgrades to this transmission are done. This is a stock transmission, but it's a rebuild. It's about a year old. We don't know what was put into it from the rebuild, but now with the stuff we've put into it, we think it's pretty good to what kind of horsepower? Well, what do you think?
I think it'll hold 400, 425. It's
Reliably.
Reliably, it's just going to depend on the converter, but yeah, 400, pretty good.
Okay.
That's kind of where, yeah,
You're pretty happy.
Pretty happy.
So we built these tunes right around in layer levels up to around 400 horsepower. We're going to test them right now to make sure that's where they are, but typically that's where we're going to be. So we're going to start with level 1. Level 1 is stock tuning. But in this EFI Live tune, I've removed a bunch of limiters. So typically a stock truck does about 285 to the ground, uncorrected on our dyno. You may see a little bit more with the limiters off, but we'll find out right now. So run 1, here we go.
While to get the 3000.
Yeah. All right, so 289.1 was our peak power uncorrected. The peak torque was 594, but you got to realize we're starting these runs at 2,000 RPM. It probably would have had a higher torque reading if we could start it lower, but without a lockup switch, it just wants to downshift. So all these runs are 2,000 RPM and up.
And you're kind of rolling into the throttle, not just jamming it too.
Yeah.
So we could maybe get the torque a little higher, but
still, 289, 594, pretty respectable, pretty reliable for a stock truck. Anyway, let's go to tune number 2. This actually, tune number 2 is more of an EGT towing tune for like a lot of weight. I use actually less pulse width in this tune than the stock tuning. But with
the pulse width, for guys who don't know, that's the duration of the fuel event.
Yeah, how long the injector stays open. So I'm actually using less fuel for this tune than stock, but it makes up for it with timing. So it's not a huge power bump, but it's really good on EGTs, which we'll show you in a few minutes.
It's called an optimized stock tune, essentially.
Yeah.
Put on level 2.
Yep. There we go. All right, so that run, we peaked at 324 horsepower and
658.1 on the torque.
658.1 in torque. So again, that's with less fueling. That's just playing with the timing maps. And so the EGT is much cooler on that one. And we're gonna do some EGT tests here in a minute. So this is now tune 3. So we saw a good, what was that, 35 horsepower bump over tune 1 stock tuning. Let's try tune number 3. All right, so level 3. We got 350 horsepower and 723 foot-pounds of torque. So a 25 horsepower bump, nice bump in torque. So far, every level's been doing really well. Tranny's holding just fine. I don't detect any slip, but which I wouldn't feel. It's going to be fine. I'm not worried about the transmission. So anyway, let's go to level 4, see what we get. All right, so that one did 369, 370, so another 20 horsepower bump, 795 foot-pounds of torque. These are uncorrected numbers. Yeah, let's do level number. Now we're got level number 5. How close we get to 400 horsepower? That's our goal. 400, not 500.
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, you might be able to hit 500 if you tuned it to the max, but
I don't want to do that with the
trans
train.
isn't
Yeah,
safe, and
No.
EGTs will be out of control. We
400
want good,
horsepower is the
safe-
goal.
Good safe tune.
Okay.
Now, Todd, I don't compliment you often, but that's pretty amazing, honestly.
My goal with the tunes in this truck was 400 horsepower. What did we hit, Will?
400.9.
0.9 off. Close. Really close.
And
400.9.
we know how dynos vary 1 or 2 horse per run.
Yeah, if I
so I mean, you're as close as the dyno could measure. I mean, you're about as perfect as you could get.
That's hilarious. So 400 on the dot, 400.9 horsepower, 850.9 foot-pounds of torque to the ground at 2,200 RPM. So yeah, this is a good running truck, and we should be really good with the pan-off upgrades. Let's do some EGT testing, because I want you to see the difference in EGT on these tunes. What we're gonna do is he tows this right about 2,200 RPM. So I'm gonna get this at 2,200 RPM, and the dyno is not gonna let it go any faster. So I'm gonna just put my foot in the floor like I'm going up a nasty, nasty hill. It's gonna hold me right at 2,200 RPM, and we'll see what kind of EGT we get. Connor, is that you? Are you freaking impacting me right now? Okay, so this is the gauge to watch right here. This is our EGT gauge. Straight up is 1,400 degrees, 1,200 is up to the left. So I'll be telling you what it is, but hopefully you can also see it in the video. And so we're gonna just do these runs. Right now we're gonna do tune 1, which is stock tuning. So let's see what kind of heat we get there at 80 miles an hour, which I think is 2,200 RPM. And
Constant speed of 80.
yep. Okay, we're approaching our speed now. We're there, and the dyno's gonna pull us down. And now I'm gonna put my foot to the floor. We are flat-footed, watching the EGT. We're 1,000. We're at 1,200 and climbing. There's 1,300.
Making.
There's 1,400. Creeping up to 1,450 now. We're almost to 1,500, so I'm gonna let out of it. That's just higher than I like. Even though stock tuning, we about got to 1,500 degrees, so we're just gonna let off that now. Okay, so one thing you got to realize is we're on the dyno here. We don't have 80 mile an hour air going across our intercooler. This is worst case scenario. I probably wouldn't get that hot towing a trailer down the road. But, this is just for comparison tune to tune. So any number you see here is worse than it actually be on the road. So anyway, tune number 1 almost got to 1,500 degrees. We'll do the same thing now with tune number 2. And this is using less fuel than tune number 1, but we had about a 35 horsepower bump over it in our testing. So here we go. So here it comes, all right. Foot's on the floor. 1,100 degrees, 1150.
About 330 horsepower is what it's saying.
330, we just touched 1,200.
327. So you're still up over 30 horsepower.
We just touched 1,250. Again, I'm sure the intercooler's getting so hot right now. 1,275. 12, so we maxed out. We're at 1,250 and she's not going any higher. So level 2 is great. Very happy with EGT control for a non-rolling truck on the dyno.
It's a little itty bitty fan.
We got a fan that wouldn't cool your room down. Very good. Let's go to level 3, see what happens. Here we go. It's gonna pull me down now. All right, here we go. Foot's on the floor.
Oh, it just hit 390 horsepower.
Pull me way down now. So now we're at 1,200 degrees.
365.
A lot of power, wow.
Wow, 350.
We're still not, we just touched 1,300.
340. 345, still holding 3. It's losing power from the heat soak.
Yeah, now we're at 1350.
342 horse, still over 340.
Yeah, we're stabilized there. We just about to touch 14, not quite. Again, I think if we were on the freeway with good air, we wouldn't do it. All right, so a little bit warmer there, not a lot more power though. That load really brings a lot of power on. All right, so here's the data from our 3 poles of our towing tunes, which is level 1, 2, and 3. And Will's got a bunch of cool stuff pulled up for us here. What are we looking at here?
Okay, so this is an average of the horsepower that the dyno measured during those max EGT runs. And we started about 8.5 seconds into the pole and ended it about 28 seconds into the pole. After everything had stabilized and we'd hit our max EGT numbers. So true sustained power, we were able to average 257 horsepower with the stock tuning. At 1500 was the max EGT, as you remember.
Yeah, it got so hot.
So that was level 1. Level 2 on the CFI Live tune, less fuel, more timing. We were able to do 270 horsepower. So roughly a 13 horsepower increase. But remember, the max EGT only hit 1250.
Yeah,
And
way
you
better.
can see that's right there. And then the level 3, we hit 1350 EGT, which is still less than stock. And we were able to average 293 horsepower through that whole window.
That's a nice bump right there. So one thing to remember on this truck, this thing is bone stock, has a stock exhaust system, has a stock air intake. There's nothing modified other than EFI Live tuning, and we did the transmission upgrades. So this is going to be very quiet towing. This is a legitimate 400 horsepower to the ground truck. The towing EGT has been increased greatly. We've picked about 50 horsepower average towing while still having about 150 degrees less EGT in our towing tunes. So it's a pretty big win for this truck. It's a lot more fun to drive, a lot better towing. And let's take a look at the actual power graphs now, just so we can finish with the actual power numbers. All right, so we have here the power curves, and you're going to notice our minimum power, maximum power, and average power across the run. So tell us what different curves we're looking at here, Will.
Okay, so the lowest run is the stock tuning, 283.029. If you remember in the video, what did it do? Like 289 or something like that? Well, these are smoothed. When they smooth, it averages the highs and the lows at the peak. And so the average highest peak was actually 283 once it's smoothed a little bit. It makes the graph look a little cleaner.
Okay.
So that's what's going there. Level 2.
Level 3.
Level 3. Because we can only do 3 runs at a time. So we pull up level 3, 335. And that's this middle graph right here. You can see a nice little power bump. And then level 5 did 390 was the peak, and that's this graph right here. Peaks out up there. One thing that's really funny is if you look, this torque curve on the stock tuning actually made less than the horsepower on the high tuning. Normally, horsepower and torque never happens, but it just shows you how much room there is in these factory trucks to add some power safely.
Look how big the torque jump is between level 1 and level 5 there. It's a massive jump there right at the peak torque.
Yeah, if you're looking at the numbers, that's showing 577 peak for that, 704 peak, and then the hot tune is 839.8. So let's call it 840.
To the ground.
And I think on the run it did 850 was the actual highest measured peak, but they smoothed, where it just averages those highest, just a little bit. So
cool. All right, so we're done with this truck. The goal of this was to try to make some decent power without breaking the bank. Transmission upgrades were not very expensive. Just pan-off upgrades. Didn't have to pull the tranny out, so it holds the power now. The tuning's not terribly expensive. And so that's all he's done. Sonny's got a nice little hot rod truck, 400 horsepower. Should give him a lot of reliable miles. And yeah, that's it for this guy. You got anything else?
No, just simple stuff a guy could do in his driveway at home,
Yeah, that's what you want, simple stuff. So anyway,
weekend project.
Weekend Warrior right here. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you share it and subscribe to our channel. Share it with your buddies. And thanks a lot, and we'll be seeing you soon.